Are you about to book a cruise with Silversea Cruises and you're trying to figure out which of their fare options is best for you? If so, let's go ahead and see if I can break that down for you today. Hey there, travel lovers. It's your Trusted Cruise and Tauck Tour and Africa Safari expert Shawn Power here. And today I want to talk about Silversea Cruises. Very recently, about a week ago, Silversea made some significant changes to their fares. For many years now, they've been doing something called door-to-door and port-to-port. And if you're a Silversea cruiser, if you've been looking at them, I'm sure you're familiar. But that's all gone now. So what I wanted to do today is talk about what they changed. First, I'm going to talk about what hasn't changed with Silversea. Then I'll talk about what has changed, and maybe break down if it's if it's a good or a bad thing. But the main thing is, let's see if we can kind of straighten up for you to help you figure out what's the best fare for you to book for your Silversea cruise. So first of all, let's talk about what hasn't changed. On board, Silversea is still going to be offering pretty much everything the same they have in the past. Now, underneath this video, I'll put in a link to my cruise category video, which talks about the entire cruising world and the different categories. And like I say, Silversea is really, the cream of the crop. I mean, Silversea, Regent, Explorer, Seabourn, Crystal, they're about as good as it gets. These are the small ship luxury lines. They pretty much include everything on board. And speaking of inclusions, I mean, when you step on board Silversea, pretty much every drink is going to be included in your price. We're not talking about, house liquors and stuff like going on an all-inclusive in the Caribbean. We're talking, lots of the, nice liquors that you order in a bar at home, that kind of thing. Great, wines, champagne, beers, everything. So like I said, you're really not going to need to spend money there. Wi-Fi is included. Everyone gets a Wi-Fi account. All the gratuities are taken care of for your room stewards and dining staff and butlers and pretty much everyone on board. So there's no one you're going to need a tip. Speaking of butlers, that's one of the unique things on Silversea is that everyone gets butler service. And I always enjoy it when I'm on Silversea. I mean, they'll take care of things like helping you arrange some of your dining if you need to make some changes, or maybe it's just helping get your laundry done. And when you have room service, they bring it in and stuff. They just make everything nicer. It's not pretentious at all. It just makes your trip feel really special. So everyone gets butler service. And then pretty much, I'm not going to say all meals are included on board because Silversea is unique that way. With the other companies I mentioned, Regent, Explorer, Seabourn, Crystal, they all include pretty much all of their meals. I can't really think of situations where you pay on those. But Silversea, even though there's tons and tons and tons of free food, they have a couple of venues, and I think it's because of the size, they're quite a bit smaller, where they do need to charge a fee at their specialty restaurants. So like when I was on board not too long ago, I think it was a Japanese restaurant, and a little bit of teppanyaki. We have beautiful lobster tails and everything, but I think I counted like 20 people in there. So if you're on a week-long cruise, for example, and only 140 people can go or something like that, they can't have it for free because they can't get everyone on board. So there are some exceptions to the meal thing, but let's say probably 85-90% of the food's going to be included on board. So nothing's changed there. Everything's still going to be the same when it comes to the onboard inclusions. Same with me when it comes to if you're one of my clients, you're still going to get the hundreds of dollars of onboard credit that I can offer you, on top of Silversea's, perks, whatever they have. Or sometimes, I might actually have a better deal if we have some kind of unpublished promo. Even a lot of people, I know some of you have booked with the cruise lines direct, the movie you're booking to me after, and you'll get those perks. So the point is, all that stays the same as well. So again, what you do with me stays the same. What you receive on board stays the same. But what's different is their fare options that you can pay up front. And what I'm going to do here, I'm going to actually look at my cheat notes because this is pretty new and I want to make sure I get it myself. So really what they're doing is they're offering two main new options. There's a third one, I'll mention it, but I don't think it's going to be a real, I don't think it's going to be very common, at least for my clients to buy it. So number one, they're offering something that's called All-Inclusive Plus. So basically what that is, they're saying, look, if you pay this fare, you're going to get all these inclusions, and the plus means you're also going to get a shore excursion credit. Now, if you know Silversea, up until now, you used to get included shore excursions at every port. So like however many ports you went to, there was always 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 included excursions. It was a really great value. As far as I was concerned, and up until now, Silversea and Regent were always the two most inclusive companies out there, because not only do they include everything on board, but unlike Explorer and Seabourn and Crystal, who don't include any excursions at all, Silversea and Regent did. But unfortunately, Silversea's taken that away. So now they're just giving you excursion credit, which I don't really think is overly significant. I mean, at least in my opinion. So I'll give you an example. I just pull up a cruise here, and I'm just going to kind of look at the numbers. But basically what this is, okay, I'm just looking at this invoice. So it's a 12-day cruise in the Mediterranean, very typical of what I book for a lot of my clients during the summer. You know, they fly to Europe, they do 12 days. They might even do another cruise pre or post, you know, a river cruise or a land tour or something. But, you know, no one's really doing a lot of 7-night cruises with Silversea, at least in my experience. So this is an example of where they're booking a 12-day cruise and they're getting a $900 per person shore excursion credit, so $900 per person. Now, in my experience, on average, shore excursions are at least a couple of $100 in Europe. So, like, if you look at this here, I looked at the itinerary, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there's 9 stops. So let's say that's about $1,800 on average. You know, that someone's going to spend. So sure, they get $900 of it, but then they still need to pay another $900. And you know, the $200 per port is probably a bit low on average, but you know, I don't like to overestimate things. You know, like I just don't want you to think I'm being unrealistic. But the point is, I think we can all agree, like, it's easy for excursions to be $200 per person. So again, $1,800, they give you $900. That's like another $1,000 a person, $2,000 per couple, pretty much, that you're gonna have to pay on top of their current rates. So like I said, it's almost too bad in a way that they got rid of their included excursions, because now you are gonna have to pay some more after you book. And that's called all-inclusive plus. Everything else is pretty much the same when it comes to inclusions on board. Now, their other option they're calling is just all-inclusive, and basically that's what I described. You know, the butler service on board, the drinks, the tips, the Wi-Fi, you know, most meals, that kind of stuff. So what they're doing is they're charging different fares though. So for the all-inclusive plus, and I'll show you some real numbers here from this 12-day cruise. That one here, they're charging $10,100 per person, so $10,001 per person. For the all-inclusive, which doesn't include the excursion credit, they're charging $9,300 per person, so $9,300. So that's basically what an $800 difference per person. So basically what they're saying is, if you give us another $800, we'll give you a $900 credit. So it kind of evens out. So some people might say, you know, why don't I just, you know, pay the lower price and I can worry about excursions later? And, you know, because, you know, I'm only doing this to save $100. What's the purpose? But this is where it kind of gets a little bit tricky. So they're also changing the terms of the booking. So here's what I mean by that. They're basically changing the cancellation fees. And this is where it gets a little bit tricky, especially if someone like doesn't like to do excursions. They may feel like it's a little bit unfair. So if you're doing this all-inclusive plus fare, like normally you're paying a deposit, 25% deposit. And what they're saying is, when you pay your deposit, and most of my clients book Silversea a year and a half, if not 2 years out. I've got lots of bookings now in 2027, and you know, this is the third quarter of 2025. Very, very common. So people book far in advance. So what they're saying is that when you book up until 5 months before your sale, which is final payment, they're not going to charge any fees if you cancel. So if you put down a 25% deposit and you change your mind 6 months out, here you go, you get every dime back. That's actually a positive change, because up until now, you were losing at least $500 per couple if you cancel. So that is positive. But what they're saying to the people who are paying the lower rate is that if you cancel, you're going to lose your deposit. So that from the day you book, like, I mean, I'm talking 2 years out, and you change your mind and something comes up, you can't go, you know, someone in the family gets pregnant, or God knows, you know, something changes with your job, or whatever it is, your health changes, you're just going to lose that deposit. And that's pretty significant. I mean, when we're talking about a $10,000 trip, you know, per person, that's $20,000 a couple, you know, you're talking like a $5,000 deposit that you're going to lose. So that's a lot of money, 25%. So like I said, it's not as easy as saying, oh, I'm just going to pay the $9,300 price and save the money up front, because again, now you're also, you know, putting in higher risk, you know, so you better be committed to this cruise is the point. So like I said, it's kind of, you know, it's a bit tricky what's best. I mean, knowing my clients, I think when they go on Silversea, almost all of them are going to pay the higher rate, because the way they're going to look at it is like, look, okay, you know, I'll pay the extra $800, I'll get the 900 credit, it's a wash, but at least it's refundable up until final. Because, you know, people like to have that little bit of flexibility. I mean, of course I want you to go on your cruise, but if you need to cancel 6 months or a year out, I hate to see you lose money. So I don't personally think you're going to get a lot of people who are going to take this lower option, because again, it's just a bit riskier, losing 25%, you know, up until final payment. You know, I guess you might have someone who says, well, I don't like to do excursions at all, so I'll pay the lower rate. But I don't know, maybe it's better to use another cruise line then. Because again, I already mentioned there's Explorer, there's Seabourn, there's Crystal, and they don't include excursions anyway. So if you're the type of person who says, I don't want to do excursions, I'm not going to, you know, overpay on Silversea, rather than risk all that money, it just could be something to think about. So it's kind of one of those things. I mean, you know, if you're a client of mine, you know this already. I'm going to go over all the options with you, see what I think is best based on, I mean, again, I've been doing this for 20 years, almost $100 million in sales for my clients. I've been on almost 100 cruises. So I've just seen these again and again and again. You know, I can break down these promos really quickly and help you see what makes sense. So again, you know, my guess is most of my clients are going to go ahead and do the higher rate, include the excursion. And then, you know, there is a bit of flexibility though. Then, you know, you can, you know, let's say there are some ports where it's just nicer to walk around, or maybe you want to get a private car. I guess that's, you know, one of the pros is that at least now, because you didn't pay for an excursion in every port, you're not feeling obligated to do one through Silversea. So maybe you use the $900 in this case. You do some excursions at 4 or 5 ports, and maybe it kind of balances out itself, and then basically you go off and do your own thing in other ports. So like I said, there's pros and cons, but hopefully that helps break it down. So again, you know, just to kind of recap, the all-inclusive plus is a higher price with a shore excursion credit. In this case, on the 12-day cruise, it's $10,100 a person with $900 in credit. If you do the all-inclusive, what they're doing is they're basically saying no credit, but you'll pay less. In this case, $9,300. But again, the higher price, no cancellation fees up until final. The lower price, once you pay that deposit, it is gone if you change your mind. So hopefully that makes sense. And you know, any questions, of course, let me know. Now, oh, and by the way, one thing I should mention as well, this is for Silversea's, we'll call them ocean cruises. So all their normal cruises from Alaska to the Mediterranean, Caribbean, you know, Asia, those kind of things. But of course, Silversea has a really big expedition part of their company as well. So we're talking Antarctica cruises. I just did an Arctic cruise with them a few months ago. You've probably seen that on my, you know, YouTube channel and my website. Also over in the Kimberleys, they're also doing that in Australia. So there's some different areas. So the point is, with the expedition cruises, they always include excursions everywhere you go, because they kind of have to, because it's done by Zodiac, and you know, it's the only way to get off the ship. So this doesn't apply to that. The only option with the expedition cruises is to pay whatever the higher rate is. The nice part is, though, again, the deposit is all refundable till final. So they don't have this all-inclusive plus, all-inclusive, because everything on an expedition cruise is all-inclusive plus, because you're always going to have your excursions included. So hopefully that makes sense. Again, what I described earlier was just for their ocean cruises. Again, for expedition, it's just the higher price with the refundable deposit. Now, there is one more fare that I don't think at least my clients are going to take a lot of advantage of. So you might see it on the website, and it's called last minute fares. Basically what they're saying is on some sailings within 5 months of the sail date, you know, they might give you some significantly reduced fares. And if you book it, it's 100% non-refundable right away. Now that might sound good in theory, but again, I've been doing this a long time, and I've booked literally thousands of cruises. And especially the last few years since COVID, I've never seen cruises as busy. Things sell out so early. So in my experience on a company like Silversea, you're not going to get a lot of good last minute stuff anyway. Even if you do, it's usually the rooms that no one wants. You know, they're right next to the elevator or underneath the pool. They're in the nose of the ship where there's the most vibration. And also when you wait last minute sometimes, especially if you're going to Europe, I've seen airfare be 50 to 100% more within the last few months. You know, like when I go to Europe, and I go usually, you know, twice a year, every year, I'm booking my flights, you know, 6, 7, 8, 9 months out. You book one of these 1-2 months out, you can pay a lot for airfare. So again, it sounds good, but again, you got to keep in mind, you may not get the best room, and you may pay more for airfare. And also, if you're really set on going on a cruise, you cannot depend on this, because again, in my experience, so many of these cruises are sold out and way in advance. I can't even tell you how many times I've booked one of my clients, a couple, and then they invite their friends and they get a home, and I'm like, I can't even get you on this sailing. It happens again and again. So like I said, the last minute fare, I kind of really wouldn't pay a lot of attention to it, at least in my opinion anyway. But again, with the all-inclusive plus and all-inclusive, I think you're probably going to go with all-inclusive plus, you know, at least in my experience. So again, hopefully that breaks it down for you. Any questions, let me know. What I'm probably going to cover in the next video, so have a look for that one, is let's see now how these new fares compare to, you know, well, I mentioned Regent earlier, and that's probably the best one to compare it to, because now Regent is the most all-inclusive cruise line in the world, at least in my opinion, because with their excursions included, Silversea's not. You know, I think they have a lot more included there. So maybe I'm going to break down Regent versus Silversea and look at some real pricing and see what makes sense. So look for that in the next video. Beyond that, any other questions, let me know through the comments here or on my website at ShawnPower.com. Feel free to subscribe here to kind of check out my next update and, you know, my Regent versus Silversea cruises coming up here soon. And beyond that, have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.